Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Drost, for being here to discuss this important bill. I do want to start with a question I asked the previous presenters, which is the logic in society seems a bit backwards, where in much higher paying jobs you have access to paid sick leave. Lower paying jobs, minimum wage jobs, tend not to have access to paid sick leave. Do you want to comment on why that seems, at least at worst, upside down, if not inequitable?
Yeah, I'm sure there's multiple factors behind that, Mr. Coon. Again, I think part of that's, the higher income, the more that the organizations want to retain these workers. And it just, it speaks to what I was talking about earlier in terms of our low-income people seem to get the brunt of any social concerns or bumps or those types of things. We look at the housing. I can assure you Tiff Macklin is not worried about where he's going to rent or where he's going to buy his groceries. So it is, I would, and another factor, and I'm certainly pro-organized labor, is that many of these workers have negotiated those contracts with their employer over the years in some of those higher paying. And we all know, the research is pretty clear that, unionized jobs pay better and have better benefit packages, and those have been negotiated with the workers to ensure that they are able to try to sustain and make a decent living. And it's rather unfortunate that those with the least financial resources are penalized the most whenever we have this global pandemic or any other kind of catastrophe. Those in the higher brackets have the resources and means to get through that a little easier. Whereas if, again, you're a single parent and you're not sure if you're going to be able to stay in the unit that you're renting, and you're not sure where your next check is coming from, it is rather bizarre in this democracy that the lowest income people are the ones that pay the highest price when there is a catastrophe. So there needs to be better protection for low-income families, working or not.
You mentioned developing a matrix in terms of decision-making around what businesses might be supported in some way to ease the transition to an obligation to pay sick leave, so that eventually it just becomes seen as a cost of doing business. Can you elaborate on the kinds of criteria that you think should go into that matrix?
Yeah, and I have put some thought into that, and I've actually thought about this for quite a few years in terms of when we look at tax reform. We strongly believe there needs to be, our tax system needs some significant reform. I'm not a financial expert, or develop policy or whatever, but there are companies out there that are doing quite well and can stand on their own. And it would not be a global competitive disadvantage if they had to ensure that they were providing benefits and services to protect their workers. I'm not sure what that looks like, but in terms of the tax reform, we've never, usually when tax reform is mentioned or you're going to increase the minimum wage or those types of things, we hear a lot of outcry of how this is going to completely, be such a burden for small business and medium-sized business. Well, then there should be allowances for that. But when you have corporations that are, making billions, a lot of it from resources that come from this province, then it just doesn't seem equitable that they too would receive these taxpayer supports to provide protection for their workers and benefits to their workers. So I don't know what the matrix are. It certainly would have to take some, some experts and some consultation to come up with that reasonable matrix.
So you're not opposed to the idea of providing some form of support for businesses who need it,
Correct.
It's just a question of what that looks like.
That's exactly the point.
Okay, thank you.